Can we please now welcome to the Babar stage the wonderful Serena Mitchell.
Welcome. I'm really, really pleased to be returning here tonight. I think it was last year that some of you might have seen my talk about Sheila and the gigs and saints and psychics. But I'm returning tonight with a different theme, but still very rooted in Sussex. And this is a story about the elements, about fire, about the earth, about the air, and about water. It's a story about my alchemical ancestors. But before I go on, can anybody tell me now through this talk, I'll throw the odd question to the audience, and if you get that question right, the first person to get it right will get a little prize at the end. So my question is, what is Sussex marble? Does anybody know what is Sussex marble? I can't see any hands up. Okay, the gentleman at the back. Chalk and chalk. Chalk and cheese. It's two things, chalk and, sorry? Clay. Almost. No, not flint. No. Okay, I will give you, the full answer is chalk and limestone mixed together. And this is a talk about the story of Sussex lime kiln burning. So, lime kiln burning in Sussex really was a village industry, and you'll find it all across Sussex, and you will find it all across the country. It was meeting the demands locally for agriculture and construction, and made perfect use of our local geology, which is chalk, and obviously we had ample limestone as well, and that's where the term Sussex marble comes from. Lime, which is calcium oxide, was produced by calcinating chalk or limestone, and it was crucial for neutralizing acidic acidic soils and improving crop yields, and then making the mortar for construction. You'll find it, as I said, across villages, close to the downs, close to the sources of the chalk. And my ancestor, I'm going to introduce a little bit later, was a Sussex lime kiln burner. And he lived with his family in places like Pevensey, Lawton and Ripe. He was moving around Sussex with the work. And the local communities relied on people like him who were the local lime burners. Another opportunity for a prize. This is a picture of a lime kiln, the remains of, on the South Downs. Does anybody know where that might be? Any guesses? Okay, good, very good guess. It's not the Lewis one. This is actually in Fulking, so just past Devil's Dyke, and it's National Trust land. So that's the remains. It's been quite well sort of repaired, and the chalk pit's just behind. The eye of the great lime kiln burns brightly, a fierce red against the black winter sky. Some say it is the great underworld goddess herself harnessing the power of fire. This was a fiery business. Oh, what's happened? Oh, oops. Help. Help. Which way am I going? The spirits are, the tricksters are.
Was that where you were?
Yeah, that's where I was. Yeah, I knocked it. Yeah, that's okay. So there's always a trickster about, isn't there? So, get this right on. That's better. That's better. Okay, so the whole process of lime kiln was based around fire. It used the elements, obviously air. You had the earth. The materials were coming from the earth, from the land, and water was part of it, and I'll explain a little bit as well. But the majority of the lime kilns were built in this construction of a cone. You will find some of the old conic shaped kilns dotted around Sussex. There's one on the river that goes down to Newhaven in one of the villages there. It's clearly an old lime kiln, and it had 2 air inlets at the base, and it was usually constructed of brick. The burning chamber was filled with layers of crushed limestone and wood, and when it was fully loaded, the kiln is kindled at the bottom and the fire gradually spreads upwards. The heat generated, now this was extreme temperatures, so hot, and the heat generated produces quicklime, which is burnt lime and calcium oxide. And through the calcination of the limestone, which then decomposes in the heat, that then produces the lime alongside carbon dioxide. And this is an old print. It looks like a sort of an early Victorian sort of area, early to mid-Victorian era print of a lime kiln in action. And you can see the cart. I press there. There's the cart, which will be loading up all the raw materials to be kind of put in to the kiln. But where did lime kilns come from? It was the Romans that first introduced lime kilns to Britain. So it's got a very ancient history here. And it was the Romans that this is an example, not from the UK, but from Germany. And you can see that sort of the round shape, which would have had the furnace and the brick built above it. And so as they expanded their empire, they brought their new technologies with them. So that's when it first arrived. Of course, Sussex was one of the first counties or the first tribal areas to openly receive the Romans. The Atrebates tribe here in Sussex had already been trading with Rome, and they were open to the Romans coming. I mean, there was a whole political history behind that, but basically we said, come on in, we want your what you can bring for us, and also help us fight and conquer the other tribes that we've been fighting with in the area. So you'll find remains of Roman lime kilns across Sussex. There is one in Lamsley, which is a farmstead, an old Roman farmstead in West Sussex, and there is a lime kiln. I'm not sure if it might be of a later date in Eastbourne, which was found. The remnants of it was found on Church Street. And there's another example in Pulborough, which is built on the banks of the River Arun. But that's much later. That's early 18th century. So again, you'll find them right across East and West Sussex. But does anybody, again, for the opportunity of a prize? I don't think anybody's won one yet, so I'll keep going. Does anybody know where the lime kiln industry first started? So the Romans brought it to the UK, but where did it first start? Okay, any guesses? China, good guess, but not China. Greece, getting warmer. Turkey, who said Turkey? Come and see me afterwards. Yeah, Turkey. Do you know how long ago in the area that was Turkey that lime kiln burning started? 5,000 years ago. So the Romans came 2,000 years ago, just over, and yes, so 5,000 years. So it's been around for a very, very long time as a process. Now, it didn't arrive in Ireland until the Norman conquest, and it was the Normans, when they then later conquered Ireland in about the 1100s, they then brought lime kiln burning over to Ireland. And again, for the Irish soil, which is very boggy, and you've got the clay soil in Sussex, which is, muddy, clay, it's a transformative substance because it sweetens the soil. It makes it fertile. These difficult soils that would be difficult to grow our crops, lime was the magic substance that made the land really fertile. And of course, you could use it for whitewashing your house, for sterilization. It was in dairies, it was used as a sort of an antiseptic to make the environment sterile. It was used to tan animal hides. It was used even to blind the eyes of your enemy, to make cement, and get this, to eat away at the flesh and the hearts of dead prisoners to prevent the rot setting in. So it was a really, so it had multi uses as a substance. And the process, again, we come back, I've mentioned it a little bit, this process of stacking the kiln with these layers of chalk and fuel. And the thing is, and this is what was so hard, and I think of my ancestor doing this really hard job, the kiln and the fire had to be tended continuously for 3 to 4 days without a break. So that fire had to keep running. If any of you've got a fire pit, if you've done it, keeping a fire going, is an art. But to do it for 3 to 4 days without a break, you'd have to have your food there, your drink, everything you needed in that one place, and then it would have to be cooled for a further 2 days. So that's like a week, a full working week, just to get one load of lime. But it really is that transformative alchemical process, turning raw materials into something that's really valuable and valuable for the community. And I think this whole industry, which is, it doesn't exist now as it did, even 150 years ago, really connected people back to the land. And we've lost, with modern agriculture, we've lost that connection to the land. And I think that is something we should start, and is people are starting to reclaim. And of course, when you work with the land, our rural communities were much more attuned to the magic and the ritual of the land. So, of course, when you have an industry such as this, you're going to find folklore. And with the furnaces, they would give off poisonous vapors. You had the alchemy going on, the transformation. You had all these hazardous products associated. And it was an industry that was vital for the whole agricultural survival of a community. Then superstitions would arise. And in Ireland, this is where you find some of these interesting superstitions, though they would have existed here in Sussex as well. Perhaps slightly different ones. I've yet to research some of those traditions. But in Ireland, according to stories captured in the 1930s, young people would often go to a lime kiln for around sort of Halloween, and find out who they were going to marry. And there was a researcher called Lady Francesca Wilde, and she said that one tradition suggested throwing a ball of wool, worsted wool, into a lime kiln, and at midnight, and asking who holds the ball. And with that, the answer of the future spouse's name would be revealed. I'm not sure how, maybe in the fire, the sparks of the fire. So that's an example of who am I going to marry? Go down to the lime kiln. You might find fairies in Ireland. People were, to go to the ends of the earth not to upset the fairies. And often you will not cut down a fairy tree. Roads will be built around a fairy tree rather than cut it down. Well, there was a story of a lime kiln being built on a fairy site, and the fairies were not happy, and all the farmers' livestock died as a result. Other people have been said to use lime kilns to summon up the devil. There's a vicar who was said to have sold his soul to the devil, and he met the devil at the local lime kiln because he thought that would be where the devil would like to hang out because it was nice and hot. Of course, the lime kiln burners themselves were superstitious, and knowing it was a dangerous job, would want to make sure that they were protected. And this is where the water element would come in. Before they lit the kiln, once it was all stacked up, they would climb with a ladder, I presume, up to the top with their bottle of holy water, perhaps collected from the local well that morning and blessed by the vicar, make the sign of the cross, and they would say, "We say our prayers, for we are burning the bones of the earth." It was also a place of cure. If you had a child that had whooping cough, you would take your son or daughter down to the local kiln and ask for a cure. Now, I've just come back from Colombia, hence the hat. I'm still feeling Colombia very much. And I was on a very intense 2-week retreat working with tobacco and coca leaf medicine in traditional ceremonies. And we learned about, in fact, in one of the ceremonies, there was somebody there who was using lime. In this, if you see over here, that is called a poporo. And it's used by the Kogi tribe, who come from the most beautiful mountain range of the Andes. It's where the Andes meet the Caribbean. It's the start of the Andes. And this is the photo I took on the beach about 3 weeks ago. And the Kogi tribe use lime as part of their daily ritual. And when you have cocoa leaves, the natural dried leaves of the coca plant in your mouth, the Kogi will take their gourd, which is filled with lime, and the stick. So the gourd is the feminine, the stick is the masculine, and they take a dab of lime and they put it in their mouth and they pop it onto the coca leaf. And it apparently, again, coming back, I was talking about lime sweetening the earth. It sweetens the coca leaves to sort of because coca is feminine, and that is said to sweeten your thought. And if you're working with tobacco, tobacco is the masculine, and that is said to sharpen your thoughts. So it's the sweetening and the sharpening of your thoughts. And it's all done in a ritual setting. And yeah, that's a little painting at the airport of, there's a very, very sacred site which is no longer lived in, but it takes about 4 days to climb to in the mountain range, and it's called the Lost City, because the Kogi people are fantastic gardeners and they know how to look after the land. But anyway, their cosmology could be a whole other talk. So just another example of how lime is revered around the world. So Henry Highlands, he was my alchemist grandfather, 4th great grandfather. He was born in Ewhurst or East Hoathly. The records seem to say one or the other. I'm not sure if they're near each other. I should have checked on the map before. At age 23, he married his first wife, Sarah. They had 2 children, but sadly, during the birth of her second child, she died and the baby died with her. So that was very tragic, but so common in those days. And so then Henry was left with one young son and obviously having to do his job as a lime kiln burner. And so a few years later, he married Keturah Townsend, who was my great grandmother times 4. And they had 9 children together. So in total, he had at least 10 living children. And they, as a family, were moving between Pevensey, Ripe and Lawton. So I could see he was probably very skilled at what he did and in demand and sort of moving to where the work was. And they married, that picture up there, they married at Wilmington Church, which is not far from here, near the Long Man. So I love to think the fact that that yew tree would have witnessed their wedding. I love that. And that's the beautiful stained glass that survived the fire, coming back to that element of fire that burnt down the church. And then some of the glass was remodeled into this beautiful window. And he lived a long life. For a lime kiln burner to get to 79 was incredible because it was such a dangerous job. So he did okay. And so why was it dangerous? Well, the intense heat, up to 11,000 degrees Celsius. So you could get burnt. You would get dehydrated. Lime kiln burners were said to have the thirst of, sort of such a thirst they could down a gallon of beer in a day. You'd be inhaling carbon monoxide and other toxic fumes. You'd get dizzy. You could get unconscious. You might even die from those toxic fumes. The lime dust itself was highly caustic, and that would cause bleeding from the nose, respiratory issues, skin burns, and potential blindness. So, all these hazards. And of course, the kiln itself might explode, it might collapse. So there were all sorts of dangers afoot. So I think Henry did really well to get to 79. And for all this skill and all this effort and all this 4 days on the trot, keeping the lime kiln burning, he didn't earn much more than a regular agricultural labourer. So their wages were a bit above, but not loads. And so it wasn't a job where you got rich. And so this is another map of Malling Hill, which is near Lewes, and you can see there's chalk pits there. And you can go, if you go up there, you can see the remains of the chalk pits. So it was very community based. So local farmers would often have chalk pits, lime kilns on their land. And the community, so somebody like Henry might be working for a local farmer who'd be employing him. He'd be, setting up the whole operation. Other farmers, other brickmakers, people would be coming by, dropping in. There would be a bit of a social network around because they knew it was a lonely job. So people would come and visit. There is an old Sussex phrase that says one must be mad or desperate to tend the kiln, reflecting how people thought this was a job for very, very few willing to do it. And I found a record in the newspaper archives of Henry Highland, which I really do think is my Henry Highland, living in Pevensey in the 1830s, who was caught scavenging from a shipwreck on the beach. So that indicated that, they were having to supplement their income as best they could, just to, especially if you've got a family of 10 children, all those mouths to feed. And so by the 19th century, the mid-19th century, Henry died in 1858, but it wasn't long after that the industry was changing. Agriculture was becoming industrialized. Lime kiln burning was becoming industrialized. So the collapse of that cottage industry really started to take place. So that really is why we have all these ruins left now. But it was a traditional skill, which I think was a magical skill. And I don't know, I think there are some lime kilns that are in museums, working museums that you can go and see them. But the tradition that I've spoken about today is not as it was. And it really does sweeten the soil, because some 40% of arable land around the world, as I said, is just too acidic. So, to end, lime sweetens the soil, but all the while the burning lime eats flesh and bone away. It eats the brittle bone by night and the soft flesh by the day. It eats the flesh and bone by turns, but eats the heart away. And with that, one last prize. Does anybody know who wrote that quote? I'll give you a clue. Famous writer who was in jail. Oscar Wilde, yes. So I don't know who said that first, but come up and see me afterwards for a small prize. Okay, and then finally, I'm. Oh, how do I go back?
Top one.
Top one. Oh, it's a bit happy. There we go. So I perform as Runes and Roses. I'm on Substack. I do weekly essay letters that go out. You can find my website. You can scan to get my Substack. I think there's a typo in my website there, which I didn't spot. It's just runesandroses.com. So yeah, you like my stories, you find me. Thank
Serena Mitchell. Thank you very much, Serena.